Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps lots. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, here we are over the weekend prior to the trading week of May 2nd, 2022. We're going to take a look at SoFi. Now, we're on the daily here, and I do think that there's potentially some interesting structure taking place that could at least give us some short-term relief. Before we dive into that, I do want to take a look at the 10 minutes from Friday's trading action and just sort of see how our levels are holding up. We hadn't actually gone through SoFi for a couple of days. So let's scroll back a couple of days. This was Wednesday. So you see this 625 level, tried to push off, got within 4 cents of our 650 level, came down, immediately lost it and tried to regain that 625 and then just kind of battled with it throughout the rest of the day. Opened up on Thursday, gave up that 625 level, came down within 2 cents of our $6 level, and then had a nice rally and got 4 cents over our 650 level, and then lost that into close a little bit. It's just sort of like wrestling with the level. It's not like it really lost it. But in any case, during Friday's action, and a lot of this is not necessarily SoFi's quote-unquote fault. The overall markets, these large indices got absolutely slaughtered on Friday, which I'm sure you're well aware of. And kind of, relatively speaking, SoFi held up decently well. But in any case, looking back to the levels here, so we opened up sort of mid-range between our 625 and 650, made an attempt over 650, came back. This could have been, had this been a much different day, this could have been a really nice setup for, attempt at breaking resistance and establishing it as support, and then this retracement, establishing that support, and then it breaking high of day and sort of getting off to the races a bit. As it were, came down, tried to establish support and just couldn't, right? And so then it came down and tried to catch itself here on the 625, flipped that very clearly from support to resistance, and then sort of trailed off into the after hours. So the reason that I go over this is just to say these levels to me seem to be holding up really, really well on the intraday action, which is the whole goal of putting in levels on the daily, is so that you can use them on the daily for longer term or swing trading, or you can use them intraday, or for shorter term swing trading if that's what you're trying to do. Now, I do think that there's a potential for some bottoming to be happening here. We do see some interesting structures coming in. We see a nice wick off of the downtrend resistance. Now, I know that's an odd way to put it for a bull, but what I'm looking at here is about a solid trading week, maybe even a little bit more, of it really wrestling with this 625 level. And with this recent wick off, you see these previous wicks off. And then the question is always, like take this one, for example, since we deleted all these upper price levels that we had, but this 739 level. So the question here would have been, it's spending a bunch of days, right? It's very similar setup, spending a bunch of days, but this one actually looks better. But in any case, spending several days trying to wrestle with this 739 level, wicks off of the downtrend resistance, and that was actually a weaker wick. And so the question there would have been, if it can establish over 739, we probably have run room to the next support and resistance level. And I call them both support and resistance level because it's resistance when it's below, but as soon as it's above that exact same level, then transitions to support. So that's just to say that the level won't change. It'll just, the terminology will change. But in any case, what we see here is actually a nicer sort of potential flat bottoming out. Right? You see obviously some action, and you would expect that with such a volatile market as we've had recently, right? These are large candles, these are big ranges percentage-wise throughout the days. But relatively speaking, it's trying really hard to hold not only the 625, but make an repeated attempt at the 650. And we've seen this on both ends of the spectrum in the past. And if you've been at this channel for a while, you'll recall my sort of slogan of going to the well too many times. Now you can use that for support or resistance, meaning if you try to hold support too many times at the same level, there's a good chance that sooner than later, the buyers aren't going to show up anymore, and you're going to lose that support level. Similarly, if buyers keep coming in and pushing the level to a resistance point, and the sellers keep showing up and sort of saying like, yeah, that's the level that I want to offload my shares at, eventually, if the buyers keep pushing it to that level, those sellers probably aren't going to be there anymore because they would have just had their chance, right? They would have had ample opportunity to get rid of their shares at that price points, and they're just not there anymore. These are the walls, that we consider. And so I'm from a bullish perspective, I'm hoping that this 650 wall is getting sort of beaten down, and that's the continuation of buyers showing up above $6 sort of comes in to push this back toward that 650 level early next week, early in the coming week, and gives us an opportunity to break that 650 level. So basically, 625 is the critical pivot point at the moment in my mind. If we establish over there and we make this run at 650, and even if we have to make it a couple of days in a row or 3 or 4 days in a row, who knows, it looks to me like there's at least a shot that this could be an opportunity for a bottom and then a range break above 650. Now, that said, if we can't hold 625, like if a couple of candles come in and it's clearly flipping 625 to resistance, then probably the exact opposite is true. That this was a range that it put in, and then it's breaking the range, and that break in the range is to the downside. Exactly what you see here. It's putting in a range, right? It's putting in a range from like 7.5 down to 7. And then when it breaks that range, you see it very clearly right here, right? And then it continues to break down. So if we see anything in that motion, that would just be a range break to the downside. But I do think, sort of compared to structures that we've seen in the last several weeks, this is potentially the most promising. If we look sort of back here at some of these, other opportunities that it had, I would just suggest maybe studying them to see how the price reacted and what it did at certain support levels below there, because obviously all of these broke down, right? Just to familiarize yourself and to not get yourself trapped, to know that like, okay, this is what it has tended to look like when SoFi has tried to establish a floor and or rally and it's broken down, because that could obviously absolutely happen here. But I do think, like I said, best opportunity in the last few weeks to potentially break this first downtrend resistance. And we'll see what this week ahead brings. I mean, I do think overall the market is quite shaky, and that worries me more than anything. I think that would tend to be the big factor more than anything, is like I've been saying for several months, the quantitative tightening of the Fed. I think that's actually going to be a bigger trigger than folks have maybe accounted for. Everyone's been focused on raising of interest rates and inflation. I actually worry the most about the quantitative tightening. But we'll see. But I would say, just the reality of our current situation, I think, is that the structures and the patterns and the trends that SoFi as a stock is putting in are probably secondary to just what's happening in the overall market. For better or worse, that just seems to be the case, and that's been the case, all told, for several months. There's been periods where that has not been the case within those several months, but if we take it in a broad spectrum, I would say it's more often than not been the case in the last several months. So I would keep an eye and see what 625 holds. but it's maybe at least an opportunity for something to watch and see what happens. Do we get a 650 break, or do we lose 625 and then maybe even lose $6? It's an interesting sort of critical pivot point at the moment. Interesting, not meaning happy. We don't want our pivot point to be 625. It's really abysmal, but so it goes. All right, folks, I hope that you have had or are having a great weekend, and that your trading week is off to a good start in the week ahead. The first trading week of May. Sell in May and walk away. I don't know if anyone's going to be selling in May and walking away this year, unless it's just to say, screw this market, I'm getting out. All right, in any case, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.